Let's be perfectly honest. Tien is a role model. But even he has his flawed moments, because being a role model is not about being a perfectionist. It's about improving yourself, even if you've made mistakes. And the same goes for Vegeta. What a fantastic character arc for both him and Tien, which is why these two guys are both on my Dragon Ball Mount Rushmore. But there's something I've always noticed. Tien hates Vegeta, or at least hated him for the longest time, more than anybody, probably even more than Chaozu himself. Ever since that grueling battle in the wasteland during the Saiyan saga, Tien just had a hard time dropping those memories, and it showed whenever Vegeta was on screen standing next to him. Man, Tien was so pissed. He hit the gym 5 times a day with anger. Just look how damn jacked he got. Look at the size of those shoulders when Mecha Frieza was about to rock up. So much hatred in the gym. But let's be honest, those memories of the Saiyan saga weren't exactly a nice picnic on a hot summer's day. No, they involved his buddy Chaozu and Yamcha both being blown to smithereens, losing his own arm and then eventually his own life, followed by the death of Piccolo. There's so many casualties because of Vegeta and Nappa. And Tien losing his own life, all for nothing, whilst a proud Saiyan prince looked on from the back row laughing every step of the way. That's what Tien saw. Yeah, you know what? If I was Tien, I wouldn't drop that crap in a million years either. Even if I were part of the Crane School years ago. Tien Shinhan's dislike, or at least deep distrust of Vegeta, is never outright explained in a dramatic monologue, but we can piece it together through context, character history, and key moments in the Dragon Ball series. Tien, though once ruthless in the combat sense, is a man of principle, discipline, and moral clarity. Vegeta, on the other hand, was once the definition of a ruthless killer, through and through, that went beyond just being a badass in a martial arts tournament. I mean, you could raise a case. Well, Tien had his character development going from bad guy to good guy, so Vegeta should be allowed too, right? It's only fair. Why does Tien have the problem if he was given the same chance by Goku and the others? Well, that's where we all draw different lines on what's right, wrong, and what's forgivable. Let's be honest here. Tien's greatest crime from what we saw ever since in Dragon Ball is breaking Yamcha's leg. Even in his debut arc, he let Goku hit him for free because he didn't want to cheat. After he found out Chaozu was helping, the guy wasn't exactly a bad, evil guy, more like a Cobra Kai level opponent like Johnny, who was guided in a bad way. Vegeta's crimes and intentions, on the other hand, let's bring out the list of Jericho. It's not even a comparison with these guys on their highest level of villainy. Stack that on top of the Saiyan saga being extremely personal to Tien. There's no way he's dropping the issue with Vegeta, especially after the Namek arc when he came to live on Earth too. Now at that point, I can imagine Tien being extra angry. The fact he doesn't have any sort of power to stand up to Vegeta and resolve anything with his fists because Vegeta is way above him. Vegeta would just squash him and then laugh more. That's got to be super frustrating for Tien, unless Vegeta just stood there and took Tien's strongest Tri-Beam. It did affect Semi-Perfect Cell. I'm pretty sure base Vegeta would be pushed down to Earth's core. But either way, it's got to be super frustrating for Tien not being able to do anything apart from show his own resentment. He knows it's not even worth the fight even if he lost because he'd still feel the same way anyway. He basically seemed bitter for life after that traumatic event in the Saiyan saga, because you have to think, the Cell saga is 5 to 6 years after the Saiyan saga, and Tien would always throw his 50p in whenever Vegeta would do something questionable, like letting Cell become perfect. Tien was like, that's just like Vegeta to do something like that. It just added to Tien's hatred, and when they all got wind of Frieza showing up previously, Tien, even though he was weaker than Vegeta, couldn't wait to get in his face and show his disgust toward him being on the same battlefield once again. The hatred from Tien is completely justified at that point, especially seeing Vegeta walk around so freely amongst everyone a couple of years after like nothing even happened in the Saiyan saga. Tien still laces his boots and focuses on the threat at hand, whether it be Frieza, androids, or Cell. He's a flawed being by not forgiving at that point through his own beliefs, but he's always a role model in many ways because he knows what's still important for the greater good, fighting the bigger threat to save Earth, but also in a sense that Vegeta is on his own growth angle, eventually becoming a role model as we've seen his development later down the line. But you also have to remember what we saw of Vegeta, any softening moments, Tien never saw those. He doesn't have a sneaky camera placed on Vegeta. Tien doesn't witness Vegeta's first true desperation as he's betrayed by Frieza, his quiet anguish and pride. Yes, King Kai does running commentary, but Tien doesn't experience it up close. His quiet anguish and pride near his death, and when Goku surpasses him on Namek, the tragic moments with Vegeta in the Buu arc. Tien misses these important character beats. As far as he knows, Vegeta came to Earth, everyone died, then got a free pass because he helped fight a bigger threat and continues to act prideful and superior. That's what presents itself to Tien. This lack of emotional context makes it hard for Tien to see Vegeta as anything other than a killer who's playing his cards right now. I think it's fair to say Tien still hated Vegeta for a long time after the Saiyan saga and was probably the guy to hold on to it way more than anyone else, but I think the more Tien saw Vegeta doing the right thing, the more he saw Vegeta helping Earth than being against it, slowly tipped the scales in his feelings towards him, because just like himself, he bounced back from the wrong path. It's just the initial wrong path Tien saw Vegeta completely cross the line, but they do have that similarity of switching nonetheless. And maybe this is just my headcanon now, but Tien sees his old self of being a bad guy in Vegeta, and when he was a bad guy trying to turn a new leaf. It probably sickens Tien thinking about his old self. Of course, when Tien switched, he was honorable about it like a martial artist. With Vegeta, all Tien sees from his point of view is an arrogant asshole that tried to kill everyone and is now rubbing it in everyone's faces with a big grin that everything is peach and he's getting what he wants. This guy is responsible for the death of my best friend, my own death, and countless innocents. Why is he walking around free? At least in the Trunks and Android saga. It's definitely a different case when Trunks dies and Vegeta does a huge shift in character from there mentally. I think Tien really notices Vegeta's change at that point, and the issue he had with Vegeta slowly faded from the toxic nature it once was for him at the beginning of the arc. In Super, they kind of just get along on the same team for combat purposes, like they always do, then they both go home. But Tien rarely speaks directly to Vegeta in the series, and when he does, he often does it with blunt remarks during training or team selections. Tien often stands apart from Vegeta, he never acknowledges Vegeta's growth like the others do. The silent disapproval says a lot. Tien doesn't forget, but he's willing to make things work for the situation. And so does Vegeta. I do think Vegeta cares to rectify any wrongs by doing something, even if it's not direct action to Tien. You know, like the Moro arc and him trying to protect Namekians. He does care about getting even with his past actions, but I don't think Vegeta even cares if he does resolve anything directly with Tien. What happened, happened, and both Vegeta and Tien live with that in their own way, and they don't forget.